Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida Extension here in Hernando County, and joining me today is my, I guess, for the time being, regular co-host, Master Gardener Bernie. Good morning, Bernie. How you doing?
Good morning, Bill. I'm just feeling great.
And we were just talking that we really have nothing specific to talk about today. So whatever questions you guys have, go ahead and throw in, because otherwise we're just going to end up running out of things to talk about and staring at the screen here pretty quickly, although I could think of a few things like rats.
That's a big problem. People that live in areas where there are a lot of fruit trees tend to have rats, and a lot of it could be helped if people would pick up the fruit that falls on the ground. Just the things laying there are rat attractive. So something to think about. If you've got a fruit tree, all the fruit that's falling, you probably should get rid of.
Well, like I mentioned right before we logged on and started here, we had a phone call from a lady yesterday, and she's most likely is not listening in. So I think we're safe on that. I didn't mark down her name or anything. And she had a problem with rats, and she has a rat or rats in her mobile home. And she said the whole neighborhood's being overrun with them because a lot of people in the neighborhood have Pindale palms, and the fruit is all falling off them because the Pindale palm gets actual edible fruit. I know people that have. It makes a really good jelly or jam, I believe. So she thinks that the rat problem is kind of spurred on by that, and rats chewed a hole in her wall, and now they were coming and going freely, and she wanted to know how to get rid of them because she's using rat poison and was complaining because they don't make the good poisons anymore. They're not as good as they used to be. And what should she do? So, Bernie, what do you think were the first two things that popped into my head that she should do before we start talking traps, poisons, or anything like that?
The first thing she needs to do is seal up the entrance so that they stop having the rats come and go. And that poison thing is a big problem. If you kill them and they die inside, you got the smell, and if they die outside, other things eat them, and you kill others. So that the unintended consequences of the poison is really high. And the other thing about the poison is it's generally warfarin. And if you've got a heart problem, that's what they're giving people to keep their blood pressure in check. So, or keep the blood thin enough that it flows through your hardened arteries. So, uh, that's pretty bad stuff, and I don't think I would want that. These little black traps, the ones where you squeeze to set, are
Yeah.
probably the nicest traps they've invented. When somebody built a better mouse trap, better rat trap, that was it. You can load them easy, use peanut butter or maraschino cherries or
Hmm.
whatever.
Do you have some?
Oh, I used them on mice. I had mice in the shop, and I got rid of them, and I was very, very happy with the performance of the traps. They were super successful, and they're very, very easy to use. So,
I bought some and used them. I got like a pack of 6 or 10, and they're not like the old piece of wood and the piece of metal that if you're not really careful is going to break your finger. Um, these are plastic. You squeeze one end, the other end opens. I'll try to remember to bring one in next week because I'm sold on them. They work great. They're easy to set, safe to use, effective, easy to put the bait on. Because the
easy to
other ones,
empty.
you have to kind of set them and then try to put the bait on it. And if you're not careful, you're going to lose a finger.
Yeah.
So yeah, I explained to the lady that when you're using rat poisons, a lot of times the animal, if you're lucky, it will go back outside, and then if it's eaten by a hawk or an eagle or a bird of prey or any other animal, it's going to kill it also. And a lot of times it might just crawl inside the wall and die inside. She said, no, these poisons make them go looking for water, So I assume because she's got a big hole in the wall, they have an easy way to go outside. And I said, there's no guarantee he's going to leave when it comes time to expire. She kind of knew everything, so I'm not really sure what advice she was looking for.
Well, there might be that secret, that where you take an XYZ item and just kind of sprinkle it around like fairy dust, and boom, the rats disappear. And that's what people really want. That
Hmm.
the ultimate solution is the one where it takes no effort and is 100% effective, and somebody else will do it for you.
And safe and
Yeah.
organic too. Yeah, that's what everybody wants.
Hmm.
And most of those things don't exist. Just it's never quite that easy.
They're
So
they're made of a product called unobtainium.
so I told her she needs to try to clean up any fallen fruit or whatever is attracting her pest outside to minimize the attractiveness of her home. And it's always a good idea if you have a hole in the wall to patch it up. It kind of keeps things out. Seemed to make sense to me. And then start setting traps around and trap anything that might still be inside. Because if you poison it, it may eat the poison bait and go inside the wall and die, and then you get to smell it for a couple weeks.
I think that if you have a bat problem and you plug the hole, it depends on there's actual laws on what when you can pin or plug the hole so that if there's any babies, that the babies have an opportunity to leave. You uh, cover the hole in the evening after they've left, and then they can't get back in. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
what you
shame that it
do.
doesn't work with rats like that.
No, no, rats you can't kind of plan on their coming and going. With bats, there's a closed season where you can't plug up holes or remove them because it's baby season basically for bats. Teresa, I'm sure, knows more about this than I do. Um, and then if you do have a hole, and let's say they're up in your attic or up in your roof, you need to wait at night until they all fly out and they're all flying around the neighborhood, then patch up the hole. If you patch up the hole in the morning, you just trapped a bunch of bats up in your attic, and that's probably not a good thing.
No, that would well, if you have no olfactory cells in your head any longer, you probably wouldn't even notice. But for most people, it's not going to be pleasant.
Yeah, yeah. And I tell you, we get some crazy calls here. We hear people tell us about some of the things they do, and we just all we can do is just kind of shake our heads some days.
The people that set fire to the trees to get rid of the tent caterpillars and end up burning up the trees. How many times have we heard that story?
Or they hear something up in the attic, and somebody tells them to throw mothballs up there, so they throw a whole bunch of mothballs up in the attic, and now they're wondering how to get rid of the smell in their house.
Mothballs are kind of like the first resort of the uh, people that are not in the know. If if you have uh, a thought that you need something that seems like there's a group of people, the first thing they think of is always mothballs. I have problems with moths. Oh, mothballs. Oh, I have a problem with rats. Oh, mothballs. I have a problem with gophers. Oh, mothballs. And not only is it illegal half the time, it's almost never effective for anything.
Yeah,
But
they don't. They generally don't work outside.
but they sure sell a lot of them, and there are a lot of pocket gopher holes full of mothballs all over the state.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard lots of stories and tales of what people have used mothballs for outside. Is and I don't want to sound mean or like I'm trying to generalize or anything. It tends to be older people, and I'm in that group too. So but I don't use mothballs in my yard. But it's generally older people because I think younger people don't even know what mothballs are. I mean, how often do you purchase mothballs to put in your garment bags to protect your clothes. I don't. Do you, Bernie?
No, nobody's got wool clothes anymore.
Well, nobody
Everybody's
in
got
Florida.
polyester. Yeah, some synthetic, maybe some cottons, but that's pretty much it here.
So if we have anybody watching live who's a little bit on the younger side, have you ever used mothballs, or have you ever thought about using mothballs or bought a box of mothballs in your life? Because it seems like the people who use them tend to be much older. And I had to go by my in-laws' place this past weekend, and I saw out in the workshop a box of mothballs. I don't even want to know what they're using them for. Oh, we use them to keep snakes away, because otherwise we'll get lots of snakes will crawl in the house and eat us in the middle of the night. So we have to put down mothballs because it keeps snakes away. Doesn't work, guys. Doesn't work very well.
Well, I've got a box of mothballs somewhere, and I don't have any snakes in the house, so I'm pretty sure it works.
I have some, and I haven't even had a chance to open them. It's like two mothballs in a little fabric packet, kind of. And I need to take a few of them and put them in my cases with my insect collection to keep unwanted insects out from destroying the pinned specimens. So that's kind of a real oddball, unusual need for mothballs. But if you have mothballs and you use them out in your lawn and garden, don't. It's that simple. Just don't do it. Just say no.
Yeah. It's actually against federal law in a lot of cases. You know, pesticides of almost all types are regulated by the federal government, and if the label doesn't say you can do something with it, it becomes an unregistered illegal use. And if there are consequences, you know, you end up poisoning somebody's cat doing one of these homemade things, and you get sued. You have no defense.
Yeah, you're liable.
Yeah.
If a neighbor gets injured, neighbor's child, grandchild, whatever, you're going to be found to be responsible if you put them outside because you were not supposed to. So mothballs are simple. Don't use them unless you have wool clothes in the closet. In that case, put some mothballs in the garment bag and enjoy your wool clothes 3 days a year here in Central Florida.
You know, the moth population in Florida is just tremendous. There's some beautiful moths in this state, and it's really neat. You take a sheet, just hang it over the back of a couple of chairs, or if you've got a clothesline, which not too many people have anymore, something where you can hang the sheet up and shine a fluorescent light at it. You end up, you know, if you do this at night, collecting a tremendous number of moths. The Luna moths will show up, great big beautiful green moth, all kinds of colors of little moths. It's amazing the variety that actually exists. And there's some other insects also that show up. And for the most part, none of those are really bad insects. They're just things that you don't get a chance to see during the day. So if you're one of those people that likes butterflies, oh, there we go, Luna moth.
Luna moths, yes. And we have these. I mean, you don't see them very often. And the closer you live to the forest, or if you live right along the edge of a forest or in a forest, you're going to see them more often. But they're here. They're huge. They're beautiful moths.
Yeah, I live next to a fairly wooded area. I wouldn't call it a forest, but there's a couple of blocks of wooded area, and if I do the light thing at night, most of the time I'll end up seeing a Luna moth. So they're not uncommon here. They're a nighttime thing. So if you're not looking at night, you're just not going to see them. And you know, we have so many people that are butterfly fans. Moths are, you know, they're pretty much in the same family. They're Lepidoptera. Everybody should be open to looking at some of the other things. And some of the moths are really quite beautiful. The little moth that pops up from the oleander bush is a very pretty thing. So, and you wouldn't recognize it as a moth unless somebody explained what it was. So,
Yeah, here, let me pull up another one of my favorites. And we find Luna moths at the nursery because one of the trees that the caterpillars feed on is the pignut hickories that we have a lot of out there. And then here's another attractive one. It is the regal moth, also known as the hickory horn devil.
yeah.
It is a big caterpillar, very large, very frightening, has horns, the little horns on his head. And it has a very, very large range where it exists. And there's the adult moth. And here's some pictures of the caterpillar. And pignut hickory is one of his favorite host plants. Sweet gum, we have a number of those at the nursery also. Persimmon, so these wing sumac, these are all really common trees here in Central Florida. And this is generally the time of year when you're going to find those kind of moths out flying around at night. So that's our moth lesson for this week.
I'm surprised nobody's jumped in and said anything. Who knows, huh?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to jump in and go ahead and put them in the chat. Something I had to work on this morning, right before coming on here for the virtual plant clinic, was a presentation for next Tuesday. I believe I have to travel to Lake County and help teach their master gardeners about soils and nutrients and fertilizers. So I was looking up fertilizer labels, trying to find a couple of hands-on things to bring along.
You know, soils are kind of an interesting thing in Florida because the builder puts up a house, and when they get all done and they go to level things out, they bring in who knows what for front yard soil, something that they can level out. They cover up all the building debris that's left out there, concrete chunks, anything that they don't want. So there's a lot of trash in the lawn that's all covered up. And 5 years down the road, the mushrooms start popping up. And, you know, and if you do a pH test, you find that the soil in the front yard and the soil in the backyard could vary by 2 units on pH. You could have a 6 in the front and a 7.5 in the back, or vice versa. And it makes it really funny. And they only care about putting them on down in the front half. So, and a lot of times they do this thing where they put down St. Augustine in the front and the cheapest grass seed they can get in the back. And if it's something that's going to be around for a couple of years, fine. And if it's only going to be here until they sell the house, that's pretty good too. So maybe you got Pensacola Bahia, maybe you got Argentine Bahia, maybe you got the Scots Northern grass seed mix. You know, whatever that was
a nice fescue.
Yeah, and I'll sell the house in the fall, and we'll put down some winter rye. That'll look great. But that front yard usually looks pretty good. But it's just amazing the number of things that can be in that lawn, and so many of them. You know, you want some microbes. The everything needs some microbes to make the nutrients available. So if you bring in some of the sugar sand that is from an area that there wasn't anything growing, it's pretty sterile, and it's very, very difficult to establish anything in it. So the sod lasts about a year and it fades out. and that's too bad. But there was no organic material which you really needed. There was no microbes you really needed. There was no nutrients that you really need. Nothing there. But it's level and it looked good the day you bought it. So I
Yeah.
had so many people come in that that's the story. And I had this one poor little lady that is an absolute gardener. She just bought a house in the subdivision that had been a flooded area, and they went in and they raised the uh, property about 2 feet with some fill that who knows where it came from, and then did the thing where the front yard had one type of soil and the backyard was this really cheap fill they bought. The backyard basically was uh, a eight and a quarter pH.
Hmm.
So there was very little that was going to grow there, and it was going to be a nightmare. And she surprised me no end. She did the soil test, came in, we sat down and went through the soil test. I said, basically, there's nothing you're going to be able to grow successfully on this backyard. The front yard's fine, you don't have any problems, but the backyard uh, looks like they went out and got crushed limestone and used nothing but crushed limestone to fill the backyard. She left here, went down the road about 2 miles to a new housing development, bought a new house, and put up the one that she had for sale just because she wanted to garden. She was in her 80s. She was, this is the last thing I enjoy, and
Yeah.
I am going to enjoy it, and I don't care what it costs. I've got the money, and I can do it. So I had a woman that actually bought a new house to get away from the uh, stuff that the builder had put down for soil.
That'll do it. Kind of extreme. You don't see that very often, but
Yeah.
that works. Um, I know in some neighborhoods, and I don't think we have a active ordinance that's being enforced, but maybe some kind of direction about encouraging people to put St. Augustine in the front and then Bahia grass in the backyard. And that never works out really well because they require different pH soils and you cut them at different heights. You can cut them if you cut both really high, that works okay. Um, St. Augustine needs irrigation, Bahia does not. So, and they get different pests and they're following different fertilizer programs. And then everybody wants to treat them as just the same. The guy that cuts the lawn, the people that spray the lawn. So it never works out really. It just gets too complicated. They're different. And I had somebody in um, Lily's old neighborhood, Royal Highlands, and they got a soil test done in their backyard. The pH was like 8.5. So where did they get the dirt to fill in your backyard? He said they dug a hole out in the woods, and I guess they got it from Good and Deep and used that to raise his backyard. I said,
Mhm.
well, you're never going to be able to grow any kind of turf grass really well in it. He said, that's okay. I'll just let the weeds grow. I said, they will. And, you can maintain them. So he wasn't too upset or unhappy, but yeah. And you can grow things in really high pH soil. People who live in homestead do. And they grow vegetables and avocados and mangoes and all kinds of fruit trees. You have to do it a certain way, though. There's a lot of extra work that's involved. You have to bring in compost. You have to build up the soil. You have to spray micronutrients because really high pH, your plants are never going to take up micronutrients really well on their own. You're going to have to spray it on. So there's things you could do, but it ain't easy.
Yeah. That's true of the sandy soil that we've got. The sand is an actual good growing medium. It just doesn't have anything. So by the time you put everything in it needs, you've done a lot of effort, but you still end up with a fine growing medium. That
Yep,
the
yep.
sand is a good basic.
Sand drains well. And that's really good when a tropical storm sits on top of you and you're getting 20 inches of rain in 24 hours, because I know the water, when it rains for hours and hours, it starts to pile up in my front yard. But when it stops, 20 minutes later, boom, it's all gone. I don't have to look at water, flood water up to about here for days on end in my neighborhood. Because it's sand, it's Spring Hill sand, it drains great. So there are good points and bad points to every kind of soil.
You don't have the compaction. You know,
Yeah.
that's not one of the problems. It's a good beginning, but it's like everything else. You can't move here from up north and expect to do here what you did up north. And by the same token, the things that work here don't work if you move up north. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think Teresa got a question yesterday. I think she forwarded me an email. A lady was having problems with her hydrangeas, and she told me the varieties. She had two varieties of hydrangeas: Bobo, which is a variety of hydrangea, and like lime something or other. And I looked them both up. One of them was only recommended to like zone 8. I'm looking at a picture of the country. It's not even recommended for southern Georgia, just northern Georgia. And then the other one is recommended to zone 9, but they're talking about California zone 9, not Florida, Central Florida zone 9. So I emailed her back that I guarantee you they have a variety of fungal diseases, and they will always suffer during the summer here because they're just not adapted or designed to grow here. Up north, hydrangeas do great, guys. If we had Lily back on here, I'd tell Lily, plant a Bobo hydrangea. It would do great in your yard in Pennsylvania. It's just not going to do really well here in Spring Hill or Brooksville or anywhere in Central Florida. So we have a couple questions here. Let's go ahead and start rolling through them. Bassem asks, is moringa tree invasive? Yes, it is. University of Florida evaluates all different plants, new landscape plants, weeds, trees, things that have been here for a long time, things that are new to Florida, to judge their invasiveness. And moringa is invasive. I'm not positive if that's for the entire state or just South and Central Florida. But in Central Florida, at least, it is invasive. You want to be careful if you're, I know a lot of people love moringa. They want to grow moringa, and that's fine. Make sure the seeds and the seed pods don't start ending up in wooded areas or off site. Make sure you gather up those seed pods and don't let them get loose or get away from you. I don't think the seed pods are really eaten by animals and moved around that way, are they?
not that I know of.
Yeah. And Buddy asks, have you had an update on the vanilla research? And after I saw you ask that question, I started taking a note to plan on a class and get the same speaker back on to give us kind of a vanilla update about what's happening with University of Florida research. Have they found varieties of vanilla that work very well in Florida? Are they available? I'll get a hold of him and we'll have him back on for another class. So, Buddy, keep following us. Let me show the little ticker here. If you keep following us on Hernando Extension, alloneword.com, that's a listing of all of our upcoming classes, and I will get a hold of him and schedule a vanilla update in the not too distant future. Because I did that class a couple years ago. Yeah, it's time. It's time to do vanilla again. I like vanilla. Bernie, do you like vanilla?
I love vanilla.
Have you ever tried growing it here?
No, I haven't. I've played with the beans. You just scrape the little things out of the beans and put it in your homemade ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Works great.
You can, and I am on a Facebook group for vanilla beans, and they do joint orders. Like the lady who runs it will order a whole bunch of vanilla beans of a certain type from a certain country, and then you put in your individual order, and she mails Bernie. She sends you 10, sends me 20, whatever it might be. And there's a whole art of taking the beans, and you need to put them. Clear liquor works the best. Whatever type of rum or vodka or Everclear or whatever, and you let them sit for a year or more, and you can make your own vanilla extract. The spent beans, you can get the little seeds out of the beans, and there's all kinds of stuff that you can do with it, and they give directions. I need to try to get her on the class also to tell what, if you want to start making your own vanilla and you order beans, what the heck do you do with them? How do you go about doing it? Because I've never tried it. It's one of those things that I need to try sometime. And what is the best soil to use for growing aloe in a container? More specifically, aloe vera.
Cactus potting mix.
That makes sense. Aloe grows like a weed. It's not fussy about its fertilizer or soil or anything else. So aloe is going to be a easy one to grow. Oh, here we have somebody trying to spam us here. We have some lady named Lily Browning who's at the Pennsylvania DMV.
Good luck getting a new driver's license. If it's like coming to Florida, you'll spend all day.
Take a number, stand in line, have a seat, wait till after lunch. Lily, good morning. How are you? We were just talking about hydrangea recommendations for you up in Pennsylvania. So be sure to order a Bobo hydrangea plant and put it in your yard up there. Don't put it in your yard down here or tell your daughter or anybody else to grow it here, because it doesn't work out really well, apparently. And here's one for you, Bernie, from Jacqueline, about the best way to make a young wild Florida anise plant grow fast to turn into a nice privacy shrub.
Well, I'm not sure. I think probably, this is a recommendation you don't normally make. If you want the plants to grow a little quicker, put a little phosphorus. Use some 10-10-10 fertilizer, some garden fertilizer. The phosphorus tends to pick up the growing speed. So, although that's not a heavy flowering plant, I think the phosphorus would do it some good. High organic material in the soil, some compost, and a little 10-10-10 probably kick it right off.
Something that helps is lots of diligence. So go out there and check it. Not necessarily daily, but if you check it every day, that's great. Make sure it never dries out. So you're going to kind of tweak the watering. You can fertilize, and this works a little bit better for something like viburnums that you've just planted. You want to grow into a hedge. You don't want to take forever doing it. Fertilize them very, very lightly, like once a month during the growing season, and keep them evenly watered when it's not raining. And as long as you planted them correctly and in the correct spot, whether it be sunny, shady, you put it in the right spot, they're going to grow as fast as they're going to grow during our growing season. Most everything during the winter doesn't do much of anything. They don't grow really fast. Except for cool season weeds. They grow very fast during the winter. Cindy is on here from Pinellas County. Alicia is here. Good morning, Alicia. And Alicia says it is so hot, my eggplants burned up. So she burnt the eggs.
It's so hot, you could fry an eggplant on the garden soil.
Don't even have to pick it and take it in. It's frying outside in the garden.
Yeah.
That happens. Tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, generally, you do not want to be growing them during the heat of summer here. If you planted them in the spring and they were still alive and looked okay, you can leave them. Tomatoes will almost always die. tomatoes rarely survive the summer, or if they do, they look awful. And you really want to start seeds and start new, fresh, healthy tomato plants for the fall. Peppers, about half the time, will survive the summer, and they look pretty rough by the end of summer. You can actually go in and prune them up a little bit and clean them up. And in the fall, they'll flush out with new growth and you'll get more peppers. Ideally, I can't guarantee that, but ideally. Eggplants are a little bit more tropical. And if you can keep them alive all summer long, in the fall, you'll get more eggplants. But you generally either get very few eggplants or none right now during July and August, kind of the heat of summer.
I found that the indeterminate tomatoes, you can keep them running longer, but they don't necessarily fruit through the summer. So,
yeah, you'll hit a point where you're not getting none of them really fruit or don't fruit much during the summer. Tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. It's just if you can keep like an eggplant plant alive. Now we're going into fall. You have a nice big mature eggplant plant, and as soon as the temperature cools off a little bit and the sun's a little bit lower in the sky, you might get a whole flush of blooms and all of a sudden a bunch of eggplants. So it's quicker production, but they don't always make it during the summer. And this has been kind of a hot summer.
yeah. So we have no assurance that we're going to have a cool fall either. So,
Yep. And I saw a few things on the news about an unusually cold winter. Who knows? They don't know.
they don't know.
They're just trying to get you to click on the article, so they're trying to make it as dramatic as they can.
Well, half the meteorologists say it's going to be cold, and half the meteorologists say it's going to be hot. And then whichever group wins is correct, then they get all the accolades and the big jobs on TV. So it's you could do that with about anything. Weather is the easiest one because it's something that is so variable, but it's almost like going to Vegas.
Yeah. You're going to win at least some of the time. Alicia has an okra plant that's about 8 feet tall and producing, but not a lot. It'll keep producing for a bit. And what is this, middle of August? If you wanted, anybody listening could plant okra right now. We're getting a little late in the season for it. But if you go out there and get it planted really, really soon, like this weekend, you can still get okra. I like okra. You like okra, Bernie?
I do. We put it in stew all the time. I really enjoy it. We buy these frozen vegetables with the okra already in it.
Uh-huh.
And and they sell canned tomatoes with okra already in it.
Yeah.
And, we use one or the other in stew and really enjoy it.
I like okra also. I know a lot of people don't.
Fried okra is one of those southern dishes that is really pretty good. I get that a lot of times as one of the sides when we eat out in one of the restaurants. So.
Yeah, okra is definitely a southern dish. So for those who are sitting at the Department of Motor Vehicles up in Pennsylvania, I think they eat mostly scrapple up there in Pennsylvania, not so much okra. And okra does not go well with scrapple. So Lily, please keep that in mind.
Maple syrup on the scrapple.
Yeah. Can you tap for maple syrup in Pennsylvania? So if Lily has a maple tree in the front yard?
I'll bet she could. Probably wouldn't get as much, but
Yeah.
it won't have the big run. That maple syrup thing has really changed. Instead of doing the buckets and all that, they put in the ports, tie it all together with plastic tubing, and they'll have maybe 100 trees end up dumping into one single collection point. Much neater. It's cleaner, and it's definitely a lot faster than going around it and getting a half a pint off of every tree. You get it all, and the boil down ratio is so bad on that that it takes a lot to develop a little maple syrup.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, same thing with sugarcane. I mean, they squeeze a ton and boil it and still end up with plenty of sugar, but it takes an awful lot of sugarcane to do it. So we have another question here. Bassem wants to know, can I propagate my peach tree by a air layering method?
I think you could,
Yeah.
but why would you? Peach trees here, the basic trees have got a fairly short lifetime. So, uh, I suppose if you had a variety that you really loved and you kept producing rootstock, you could um, keep producing something that would keep you with the old tree. Um, I think peach tree would air layer. So then you would
Yeah.
have a nice new tree. Um, are the peach trees actual grafts now, or are the peach trees on their own rootstock here?
They're generally all grafted still because they pick varieties for either nematode resistance or flooding resistance, I think, depending on what part of the state you're in or what your specific needs are.
The problem is if you air layer them, you're going to end up losing that uh, characteristic.
Yeah, yeah. So if you have a tasty peach tree and you're air layering off the tasty upper part, you can start a new peach tree, but when you plant it in the ground, it may just get hammered by nematodes because it's not a variety that we would normally just stick directly in the ground. If you had one of the rootstock trees, you could start a whole bunch of your own rootstock, but then you're going to need another peach to graft on top of it. So if you want to turn this into like a whole hobby, you could do it, but it's going to be
I
a couple
would
different steps.
I would think that grafting would probably be a better deal than air layering. It,
Well, I could see how you might air layer to get more rootstock trees, and then you're going to have to graft to get your tasty peach tree on top of that rootstock.
yeah, that would work.
Yeah. And there may be people who are in the business who actually do that on a large scale. I'm not really sure. Alicia asked, do you think there's going to be a vegetable shortage due to, she probably meant inclement weather or bad weather? Veggies are looking rough in the stores. Depends on where you go shopping, number one. Um, this is not a good vegetable time of year as a general rule. If you're like me and you enjoy going to farmers markets, getting the fresh, locally grown, and by locally I mean at least Southeast US grown, now's not a good time of year. If you go back in the fall, they have tons and tons of good Florida produce. So I don't know.
The thing about vegetables is so many of them come from out of the country, and as long as we maintain a free market in the world on the vegetables, it's not a problem. But some of these countries that have been traditional major suppliers, Chile, for instance, is forging alliances with some of the Asian countries, and a lot of the vegetables that would come here may end up going there, and that is probably a bigger risk to creating a shortage than just the weather problems. If we have a weather problem, that's going to be transient and it'll recover fairly quick. If we have a distribution change, then that could be a long-term shortage. So uh, there's a lot of things going on in that market right now that they're kind of ominous actually. So
Mhm.
we don't really know how that's going to go yet.
Yeah, and all I see going up is subdivisions and not farms, which is not a good thing. And so wait until this fall. Usually, maybe as early as September, definitely from October on, is the best time of year to be hitting all the different farmers markets, things like that. Alicia, I think you live in Orange County. If you've never been before, this winter you need to go to the Winter Park Farmers Market. It used to be Saturday mornings. Been there for years and years. It is huge, and they have lots and lots of fresh, beautiful produce there, and cheeses and snacks and flowers and plants and a whole bunch of other stuff. So this winter, go out and hit the farmers markets. I know that I will be. We'll take the dogs out and load up on nice looking produce because the stuff at the grocery stores, one day it looks great, next day it looks terrible. If it comes from Florida or someplace not too far away, that's fine. You're looking at stuff that's here from Argentina. It's like, wow, that's really far away, isn't it? So there's a real hit or miss between freshness and nutrition and everything.
You know, Susie and I went to the farmers market in New Orleans one time,
Wow.
and I could not believe the quality of the things that were there. The food was so much better than things that I had seen in a grocery. And my family used to own grocery stores, so uh, and I was really impressed. These farmer markets have got food that if you haven't been there, you don't even realize it exists because you've never seen that quality. It just doesn't show up at Publix or a Winn-Dixie or those kind of places. They can't afford to. If only 1% of the production is like that and it's for sale in the farmers markets, you
Hmm.
can't put that in a store because you create a need or create a desire for something that doesn't exist in enough quantity. But when you can get peaches that are twice the size of what you buy at one of these little roadside stands, and so juicy you need a bath after you eat one, and apples that are that way, uh, corn that the ears are 50% bigger than ear corn that you've seen before, and it tastes like they are from a sugar corn plant rather than just corn plant because they are so sweet. That stuff is delicious. It's it's really great, and there's flavors that you don't know that they even exist until you try it. So
Yeah, and a lot of that you're only going to find at a farmer's market because it's grown locally or very seasonally. And grocery stores, if they want to buy something, they need like 10 tractor trailer loads
yeah,
to supply their stores at a minimum. Um, and you can get because I used to live near a produce stand, and every winter they would have South Florida honeydews. And I've never seen them at a grocery store. This stand was really the only place I ever saw them at. They were the size of basketballs, and they were great. And it'd be like January or February. They were obviously grown over the winter down there in Homestead in South Florida, but grown on such a small scale that you'll never see them at a grocery store because they can't produce enough to supply grocery stores. But you can find them at a roadside stand, farmer's market, produce stand, whatever. So check them all out. Sometimes you'll find great surprises. You'll find things that you generally never see in grocery stores. Good deals, fresh produce. Buyer beware, though. I mean, you need to be. Don't go in there and just when you walk in there, don't assume that the apples were all locally grown because they weren't. We don't grow apples here.
yeah.
So, hey guys, anybody has any last minute questions, please feel free to go ahead and place them in the chat and we will do our best to get them answered. Um, Let me go ahead. And if anybody has any questions, if you're watching the replay of this and you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and shoot me an email. If it's a plant related question, go ahead and send me some pictures also. Lots of pictures. No such thing as too many pictures. If it's a comment on any of today's questions or the chat, you can go ahead and put it in the comments below. I do my best to check after the live version of the virtual plant clinic to go back and answer any questions that pop up. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to find out what kind of classes we have scheduled coming up, just go to this webpage. Have a class on muscadine grapes coming up soon. Have a series of classes on fall vegetable gardening, different parts of it. So those should all be on hernandoextension.com. Check that out for all the details. What else do we have here? We got a Master Gardener nursery. Here's the address. That's on Oliver Street in Brooksville. That is located right behind the Hernando County Fairgrounds, right along State Road 41, running between Spring Hill and Brooksville, I guess, technically Brooksville. And they are there Saturday mornings and Wednesday mornings from 8:30 in the morning until 11. When we get closer to winter, they'll be there until noon, but they're only there till 11 now because it's still really, really hot. So they have a great variety of native plants for sale, Florida-friendly plants, things that are going to do well in your garden in this area, this part of Central Florida. So please, if you haven't been there before, be sure to check them out. And if you're wondering if they're actually still open in this heat, yes, they are. They're more dedicated than I am because it's been kind of tough out there recently. And if you want to watch any of our classes that we have done in the past that we made recordings of, I have a bunch, and we have over 100 Lily Browning classes that still exist on YouTube, all recorded, and each one's about an hour long. So that's a lot of material for you to binge watch. Definitely a whole weekend, a long weekend's worth of watching. If you go to YouTube and click the little search bar up at the very top and search for Hernando County Government, you will find their YouTube channel. If you go to it and look under the playlists, I think the fire department has one, police department, county government. Extension has one. That's where my classes are. And Florida Friendly Landscaping has one. That's where Lily's recorded classes are. Like I said, she's got well over 100 of them, which is ridiculous. That's more than I have. I have a bunch, and they're really good, but she has an awful lot. So feel free to go ahead and check that out and watch a few of those classes. A lot of times, if you have a specific question, it's probably already been answered in a class. So Bassem, thank you so much. We like hearing your nice comments and compliments. Thank you both for sharing your experiences and your knowledge. I always learn something new. That makes it all worthwhile. If everybody learns one little thing new, it was a worthwhile expenditure of our time and effort from 10 till about 11 a.m. on a Thursday. Although, I guess I could have done some paperwork and gotten more caught up on it. I can't think, but that's not very fun. Bernie, have you had anybody try to walk in today during the show?
It's been quiet. People, if they've got any brains, are staying where it's air conditioned and not running out and doing any gardening that they don't absolutely have to do. So, you can get in an hour and a half in the morning, and it's not too bad. I've been doing little tree trimming, little hauling things off, clearing up, and but if you're out there after 10 o'clock, it's just miserable, and there's no reason. And I find that for some reason, younger people don't seem to do a lot of gardening yet, and the older people, maybe not quite my generation, but approaching my generation, tend to suffer more from the heat than the younger people. So that's why I'm not out there. That and the fact that if I've been down and pick a weed up, I can't stand back up. So,
Yeah, the getting down part's no problem. It's the
no,
getting
but
back
getting
up.
back up is a
Yeah.
real problem. So uh, everybody really needs to take it easy. It is going to cool down, and you will be able to get out and do a lot of things. But uh, if you lose your health now and can't do those things when it's better, that's going to be a shame. So we all want you to stay safe, stay uh, hydrated, which is very, very, very important to stay hydrated. And if you're going to go out and pull weeds and do things, do them very early in the morning. It doesn't cool off uh, quick enough now that you can go out in the afternoon, the evening. It used to be, they'd say avoid that time around 2 o'clock. Uh, Now that extends from 10 o'clock to dark. So be careful.
Yeah, be careful out there, be safe, and this is a great time to spend some time thinking about what you want to grow this fall, planning it out, drawing out a diagram if you have a vegetable garden, ordering the seeds, making sure you still have seeds if you have them left over from in the past, and getting ready for fall vegetable gardening season. And like I said, we do have classes coming up. We're always here to help. We're always here to answer your questions. We're almost always here Thursday mornings to answer all those questions. I'm going to be here next Thursday. Bernie, you going to be here?
I'll be here.
Let me double check before I speak too quickly. Yeah, I'm going to be here. So, hey, at least the two of us will be here, and maybe I'll be able to drag somebody else in to help us also. So, we'll all be here. And Victoria, you are very, very welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. We like to see new people discovering us and tuning in and asking questions. So, and you know what? We actually showed pretty good time management today, also. It's just about that time to wrap it up. So, hey guys, thanks again for tuning in. Bernie and I will be back again next Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Maybe we'll have a special guest on if I can find somebody who's free then. But if not, we're here. So go ahead and write your questions down, have them all ready. And everybody have a great week and stay safe out in the garden. Watch out for the heat. Watch out for thunder and lightning. Everything else is going on out there. And Bernie, thank you so much. We'll see you again next week also.
All right. And this is a great time for composting. So if you're not doing it now, get your composting started. Compost is the number one greatest thing you can put on the ground for your plants. So start it, do it, make yourself happy, save yourself a lot of money, improve everything, and just enjoy life in general.
There you go. That will be the thought for today. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you again next week. Bye.